Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know what it feels like to be fighting for a relationship that deep down I know no longer aligns with where God is taking you. And there's nothing easy about releasing or letting go of these relationships, especially when it's someone that you love or that you have a deep connection with. And some of these relationships could be familial, it could be friendships, it could be business relationship, and it could be romantic relationships. But I've also come to learn that not because there's a connection means that it's lifelong. Sometimes they're seasonal. Not all the time they're toxic. Sometimes they're just expired, and that's still a reason to let them go. I remember a relationship that was very difficult for me to let go of, and it wasn't toxic, but that person was dealing with personal life challenges and traumatic events that was happening around them that they were no longer emotionally available for me. I honestly feel that if they could have done better, they would have, but they just didn't have the emotional or the mental capacity to reciprocate or even to receive who I was, the value that I brought, or the support that I even wanted to give in that situation. The thing that was hard about it is that I felt so helpless because I knew that they were dealing with a lot of trauma that had occurred while we were seeing each other. And I watched them break down and just be in such a broken state and so far removed from wanting to interact with anyone. When I realized that I had to let go, it was very painful because I wanted or saw the potential of it going further. I wanted to fight for that, but I was in the fight alone because, again, they didn't have the mental capacity or the drive or the desire because they were in such a state of brokenness to reciprocate that. Eventually, it started becoming draining for me, and it would have become toxic had I stayed in and fought. And so I prayed through it, I cried through it, and I was disappointed. But when I came to the decision and realized that, hey, you got to let this go. What I learned from it was that another opportunity would come, whether it would be that with that person again or with someone else. Sometimes we're afraid to let go because we don't think that we're going to experience the great things that we found in that person. Now you have to replace memories that you created. You may need to learn how to trust again because you didn't expect things to end up the way that they did. And a lot of times we're holding on because we fear being alone. Sometimes we feel nostalgic. We're letting them down and they've done so much for us and we owe them something. We feel obligated. Sometimes we don't want to hurt the person, even when or if they're hurting us. And it's almost like, I just want to show you that I'm not going to hurt you like you're hurting me. We have this false hope that they'll change. We have this memory of what it felt like when it was good, and we're chasing that memory. We're chasing that feeling again of when it was good and when it was going well and how we felt in those moments. And so you are holding on or having this false hope. And a lot of times holding on comes with a price. It's costing you your peace because you're so distracted, you're so caught up, your emotions are so engulfed in whatever it is, the pain associated with things are not the way they used to be, that you don't have peace of mind anymore. You're having these breakdowns and emotional challenges that are hindering you from doing other things. You don't have clarity to see things really as they are because you're so caught up in what you want them to look like. I know there's been times where, because of the emotional attachment that I have to the person, my mind is consumed and thinking through things. What could I have done differently? How could I have done it better? And sometimes we're shrinking ourselves back to fit the mold of something that's no longer serving us or something that we've outgrown. It prevents us from being in alignment with where we need to be or where we're growing to. Sometimes it pulls us out of character, and now you may act up or act out of character. It pulls our energy. It really comes with a high price a lot of times when you're in these situations. What if you're hindering what God has next that's greater, better, bigger? a lot of times these relationships become anchors instead of propellers. It's not serving you. And so it's holding you back instead of pushing you forward. And so I want to share with you 5 signs that it's time to let go. Number one is that you find that you shrink yourself around them. And I know what that feels like. I've been in situations where the person may be going through valid things, right? They've had brokenness or abandonment or mental challenges, from their toxic environments or traumas or past or whatever it is. And because I'm trying to be empathetic or sympathetic, if I can relate to it on that level, I shrink back when they're acting out. And then I start neglecting what my boundaries are. I start neglecting what I know that I need to say because I'm sparing their feelings and their emotions and neglecting my own. Another sign that it's time to let go is that you feel emotionally or spiritually drained. And what that looks like is that whenever you're in the environment with that person, when you leave, there's such a heaviness on you. You just want to kind of lay down. You don't want to do anything. You can stay in this rut for a long period of time if you don't have what you need to pull you out of that from a mental space or a spiritual space. Number 3 would be that the conversation stays surface. There's no depth to it. It just stays on the shallow end of things. There's no accountability or taking responsibility for actions. They're always pushing things back on you. They're not owning things. There's no emotional depth. There's no conversational depth. And eventually that does become toxic. The 4th sign that it's time to go is that your values no longer align. You're not on the same page anymore. You're growing in one direction, that person is growing in another direction, and you guys are not being supportive of each other, or you're being supportive and they're not being supportive. And the 5th reason is that you're doing all the emotional work and that person is just kind of sitting by allowing you to do all the emotional work. They're not invested enough to do their own emotional work. They're not invested enough to give back. They're just takers. Letting go doesn't mean that you hate the person. It means that you're honoring your growth, your boundaries that you're creating and setting for yourself. A lot of times we have a weakness with that person because of how deeply we care for them. One of the things that I learned when I was reflecting a recent situation that happened is that I made myself available and lowered the standard of my boundaries for people that I had a certain level of feelings for and care for. It will always come back at some point to bite me because I extended myself to them with a sense of loyalty that wasn't reciprocated all the time to me. I learned something about myself when I had to let go of a relationship. There were parts of it that was amazing and dope, and I enjoyed being around that person the majority of the time, but there were things within the dynamic between us that were out of my control. There were things that made me kind of question, is this healthy for me? Moving forward, that needs to look different for me. I had to take responsibility and make the adjustment moving forward so that I can honor my boundaries and make sure that my values and the way that I want to show up stay authentic and true and genuine. I've experienced what it's like to shrink back, in situations, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And so learning to let go has been a part of my journey, especially maybe in the last 10 years. I have been having to let go of relationships that I thought were lifelong. Some of them did go for decades or even longer periods of time. And although they were painful, when I look back now, I can see the reason why God pulled me away. And there's one thing that I realize is that when something no longer serves you, whether it be a place that you live, I've experienced that, a business or a job that you're in, I've experienced that, and or family, romantic, or friendship that no longer serves where you're going, God is either going to remove them or he's going to remove you. And so I had to get comfortable in the uncomfortability of that. I had to learn to realize that God wouldn't allow it to happen if it wasn't for a reason. And when I look back on them, some of them I'm still working through, but in the grand scheme, I always know that He has my best interest at heart. Anything that I lose or think that I've lost, I will gain a better version of that. It's building things in my character that I wouldn't have realized had I not gone through those things. So letting go doesn't mean that, you hate the person or anything like that. It's you honoring your growth and your maturity. It's not that you're abandoning them, you're honoring your call, your purpose, where you're going. And sometimes God's removing you for their journey as well. So it doesn't only benefit you in the long run. A lot of times it's benefiting them in the long run. And one of the things that I know that a lot of us deal with when we have to let people go, or what we fear, is the pain associated with having to let go of that person. And I can tell you firsthand, even though in the moment it feels unbearable, I trust God to help me heal, because we go through a grieving process when we have to let go of someone. It's not only in death that we grieve. I've grieved my business that I closed after 25 years, and the relationships that I built there with my clients. And didn't realize that I would go through a grieving process. I never thought that would have happened, but it did. So it shows up in letting go in general. I spoke to mostly relational types of letting go, but business, friendships, locations. I've learned how to let go of locations. I've moved a few times across country, and that was a process, and by myself. I didn't have family members, and so that has been its own process as well. And so I want to tell you, you don't have to feel strong to do the right thing. You're going to feel weak when you're letting go because of the emotional attachment, because you want it to recover and be better, and you want it a lot of times to be lifelong, when it really is seasonal. If anything I said here spoke to you, I want you to know you're not wrong for wanting to grow. You're not wrong for wanting to be a better version of yourself and creating boundaries and choosing you for a change. You're not the bad person because you're choosing peace. You're becoming the version of yourself that God created you to be, that He designed you to be. So let me know in the comments below if this is something that hits home for you or that you're navigating right now. And I also want to know if you found value in anything that I said, and if you would like to hear more on this topic, or you want me to elaborate on anything that I said, that I can be more of a support to you. With that being said, I'll be looking out for your comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.